Hello, and welcome to another edition of Power of the Pen series, which is part of the Choose to Challenge TV show. I am LaWanna Bradford. I am the Chief Operating Officer of the Bradford Group and Principal of the Bradford Group Consulting, and I am so excited to be here with a newly published author, Miss Gwen Marshall. Gwen, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, and congratulations to you and all of the other authors.
Yes, from what I understand, actually, all the authors that penned this collaborative are newly published authors.
That's exciting, and
Yeah.
this publication is actually a very special publication. Not only is it a collective stories of individuals who served in the military, but all the proceeds are going to charity. And this book is entitled Suited for Service, Stories by the Unsung Heroes of Brotherhood. And you are one of those authors. And I want to just get right into it, Gwen, and ask you a couple questions.
Okay.
I know you and I have known each other for quite a while, and you've been talking about writing a story, writing part of your story. And I want to know from you, why now, and why this piece of your story? Do you feel that it's so important that people understand this particular part of the journey? And in fact, the title of your chapter is called The First Part of the Journey.
Ooh, well, timing is everything. You know, there are things that we're exposed to, or things that may be asked of us. And the thing is that sometimes it just has to be the right time. So this particular story was asked of me to write at a time that just happened to be ideal for me in order to be able to share this story. I don't have a lot of conversations about the story that is actually a very important chapter in my life. Not only is it the actual beginning, because at the time that I went into the military, I was really just coming into adulthood. So, which is absolutely critical at the time. And then a lot of the things that I had to go through and endure. And I appreciate it much more now than I did at that particular time, because getting an opportunity to look back on this journey, LaWanna, it truly helped me become the person that I am today.
Isn't it amazing that, when we were young, we go through things, and sometimes we're kicking and screaming as we're going through the experience. But then, as you said, you look back 30, 40 years, hindsight, and you realize how much value that you were able to derive and collect from that experience. In fact, it's not just value, it began to shape you, because you mentioned that you were 19, newly married, yes, leaving from your father's home to your husband's home to the military. It's like you're jumping from the comfort of the little kiddie pool into the ocean, right?
Exactly. Wait a minute. Jumping from the kiddie pool to the ocean, and then in the ocean with the sharks. Being in the military.
Because, right. Yeah, and for some of you who don't know, within the military, one of the first steps is you have to go through basic training, your boot camp, right?
Yes.
And we've all seen the movies, or we may have known someone, and we've heard the stories, and you define it as you were swimming with the sharks.
Yes.
Right? That drill sergeant.
Yes. I mean, I was totally green, totally naive. I'm away from home. I'm away from everything I know. And, I'm with I don't know, 20, 25, 30 other individuals that I've never ever seen in my life that are all, from different places. And then you get to know some of the people that along your journey as well. So it
I
it,
want
it
to
was
read.
powerful.
I want to read one section of your story.
Okay.
You said here, now they've already assigned you to a drill sergeant. So when you get off the bus, they call you by name. We lined up, and the intimidation begins. They
Mhm.
begin to tell you that you belong to the United States Air Force. Your parents nor anyone else can save you. You will follow the rules and you will do as you are told. Now, I was standing there trying to look at some of the faces of the other young women. Not easy, since you must look straight ahead. All I was able to do was look out of the corner of my eyes. What I saw was a look of fear. I can only imagine that this had to be new for them as well. We were all scared. We were terrified. I know I was, and that's for sure.
Yeah.
Now, I like that one paragraph. I mean, I love the whole read, but I kind of paused in that and found myself going back and sitting in that.
Mhm.
And I thought about how in life has its ebbs and flows, and there's always the unknown, right? That new experience.
Mhm.
And I'd like you to speak from the standpoint that so many people allow fear to prevent them from going forward. And before I toss it over to you, I want to tell our audience just a little bit more about who you are. Not only are you an author, a former Air Force airman or airwoman, but you are a mother, a grandmother, soon to be great grandmother. You were a teacher, you were a speaker, you're an educator, you are a job coach, and you are the CEO and founder of Ready Go Manager and Advisors. Those are a lot of hats, Gwen, and it showcases within each of those lanes. At one point of time, they were all new.
Mhm.
You didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't know if you had it, to walk that journey. So you mentioned that this experience taught you a lot and it made you who you are today. Can you share a little bit about what that really means to you in all of these different lanes of experiences?
It started out as fear for me, like it did for a lot of the other women that were there along with me. But the thing that is most important to me, and one of the things that I'm okay with and live with, is that it's not really fear, because at the end of the day all it is the unknown, and it's how you see it that's most important. Because as part of the teaching that I do, I tell people all the time that you're embarking upon something new. And yes, you may have a little fear of the unknown, but it's one foot in front of the other and one day at a time. And the most important thing is, remember this: you're the only person that can talk yourself into continuing this journey, and you're the only person who can talk yourself out of it.
That's a pretty powerful statement because you think about how so many times people will point the fingers of blame, right? He or
Mhm.
she made me do it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the decision rests with you, right?
Exactly. And you alone. And the thing is that yes, I was actually scared. I was scared of, at that particular time, of the unknown. I was less scared of the intimidation and more of what was to come, because the journey was completely foreign to me. Completely the unknown from day to day. And I watched a lot of things happen, LaWanna, that helped shape, because so many came with me and I watched so many leave. And, you know, as I share, they went from having fake nervous breakdowns to saying they were they were addicted to drugs. I mean, any and everything that you can imagine to leave, to get a bus ticket to go back home.
You know, I was just, as you were saying that, how often do we make excuses for our inability to stick to something, to commit to something?
Far too often. Far too often. That's what I've come to know and to learn, is that far too often we will have an opportunity and we will sabotage ourselves, because what we will do is we will sit there and think of every reason why we can't. Not why we can, why we can't.
That's true. And the more we tend to stew in that, we find people that are attracted to us that mirror and justify. See, I knew I couldn't do it because look.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Opposed to at some point being okay with being out there by yourself, because sometimes you're going to be out there by yourself.
Now you mentioned, you gave some examples where, you know, again, when you're going through basic training, you're away from your family. At the time you were a young mommy, you were a newlywed. So you're away from your child, you're away from your husband, you're away from your beloved father. You're put in this realm of strangers. But you also said something. You said the military teaches you about the art of teamwork. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, because one of the things that you also do, which is outside of this book, but you train on, is net weaving. Yes. And that's all about collaboration and the whole people skills and the dynamics and creating that win-win engagement. What was it about the military and their whole kind of, you know, one, my father was Army, so, you know, I say one Army, one fight, but it's, right. You know, it's again, it's we are united, right? Yeah. That mindset. What is it about that you feel has helped you go through in your life as you've taught your children and in your career and as an entrepreneur?
Well, one of the things that it left me with was, you are only as good as your team. If you are on a team, that's what you have. You're as good as your team. So you're as good as what the quality that you bring and the quality that you can pull from the other people that are on your team. And being in the military, one of the biggest factors is everybody is accountable for everybody. So in other words, you can have one person get the whole team in trouble. And it teaches you to figure it out. You have to figure it out. You know, do you beat up on that person and rag on that person, or do you find out what that person might need? And sometimes it was just that they needed something, but you had to be willing to ask, and you had to not do one thing that we are so familiar with, and that's assume. An assumption can be the death of anybody. You don't assume anything. You have to ask in order to find out. And sometimes they just need a little help. Maybe they just need a little encouragement.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. One of the things that my experience, and you met my father, but he served 30 years in the military, and my ex-husband was military, and my former career started off as a civilian in the military. So I am so pro armed forces, but I also know that there is a certain mindset for those who serve that is very different from those who haven't.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that it makes those who've had that experience better. It's just a very different way of looking at life. So can you share how you serving under our Stars and Stripes, what that has meant for you, and what does it even now mean for you today? Because we're coming up on Veterans Day.
Right. You look for solutions versus problems. You don't learn to, it doesn't teach us to pick things apart and find out what's wrong with it. If you have a problem, which is actually not a problem, it's a challenge. And if you have a challenge, you look for solutions. It teaches you to look for solutions. It teaches you responsibility. It teaches you accountability. It is just a mindset that is very different. And everybody that's military pretty much kind of functions in the same order, I've noticed. You know what I mean? We're very, very accountable for the things that we do. We're going to be timely. We're going to be timely, and we're going to be ready when we show up.
Right. And haven't you noticed that when you're around individuals who have served, whether it doesn't matter how long,
we're going to say what we mean.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying that when you come together with individuals who have served, there's an instant camaraderie. Even if you're in opposing branches of service, right? It's like, the Army is ragging on the Air Force and so forth, but there's something there that it's almost like it's a fraternal order of sorts. I mean, or sorority of sorts. There's a bond that's there.
Yes, it is. It is.
What can
and some are hard to understand too. It can make it hard for people who have only lived a civilian life to understand as well.
Right. What do you want the readers who pick up this book to? I mean, there's different stories here, but those that read your story, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you'd like them to take away? Because you're actually just telling your story. It's not like you're giving, a how-to, but in reading the story, there are some natural lessons learned and how-tos that people could tease out of it. So what would you like the reader to take away from your story?
Just know that even though most of the journey was relatively difficult, I found that it wasn't anything that I couldn't overcome. So in life, what's important is that we will rarely be faced with anything that we cannot overcome. We just have to try. Period. And sometimes we don't have to do anything. We just have to get up and show up.
I want to ask you one question. Towards the end of your story, you had a lot of experience. So from boot camp, then you're in the medical field within the Air Force, and you have two more children, and then you have the opportunity to go to Spain, and you decided to turn away. Let's talk about again and it doesn't make it right or wrong. Just when we have to make the decisions in life that we feel are best for us, what can you say to our listening audience about
That, you know what, that was a very hard and emotional decision that I had to make. But I couldn't make it just for myself. It was a decision that I had to make for 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 us as a family. And so I chose not to go. It was a hard decision because they were orders that I really, really wanted, and I really, really wanted to go. And I didn't want to go by myself, of course. I wanted them to be able to go. But the the thing that threw it off at the time was it would have been much easier to do if I didn't have to leave the States with um, a 3-week-old child,
that?
because that's what I was going to have to do. Because those orders had me reporting in January, and my daughter was due December 25th.
Not a lot of recovery time.
Not a lot of recovery time. And what a lot of people, what people don't know is that I was in the military over 40 years ago. There were not accommodations for women. You didn't have accommodations like some of the accommodations that, because of the things that we went through, they were able to get, that came later after I had already gotten out. But the important part is that they came, and we didn't have those kind of accommodations. They didn't care. If I was due to report, I was going to get on the plane, and that's what I was going to do. And the rest of it, I was going to figure out whenever.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a really good point that you make. Is we sometimes forget the benefits that we may be experiencing now.
Mm-hmm.
If we look back and see what others may have had to endure and vocalize their frustration in order for us to have the benefits that we have.
Exactly. And that is exactly true. And it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for things to change in the military for women. Yes. Because basically they treated us, we got no perks different than the men. We just didn't.
Right.
Yeah. So and when you're female, and when you have a family, and you are challenged, that doesn't make things easy. So I had to give up something that I really wanted at the time. But like I said, I couldn't make a decision just for myself, because if I only had thought about myself, then my life story would be very different, because I'd have got on that plane. I'd have got that hop, and I'd have left.
Right. But you had three other lives.
Right. Exactly. But I had 3 other lives that I had to take into consideration, and that I had to think about. So I had to put what I wanted to the side and let it go.
Yeah. But look at you now.
I don't have any regrets. Like I said, we live our lives and we go through what we go through and we make choices that we make. And when I look back on it, I don't regret it. I wish that I had been afforded some things that were a little different that would have given me the opportunity to go. But because there would have been some wonderful benefit to it. My children would have had a great opportunity to be bilingual, and just to experience actually living in another country. But they turned out fantastic regardless. So,
and that's what I think is so amazing, that our lives, even though they, kind of serpentine, and we may think they're going one way and they go another. At the end of the day, when you look back and you can see, as you mentioned, all these pieces, how they connect, ultimately they brought you to where you are now.
Exactly.
And as you mentioned, now is the time to tell this part of the story. And I know you have more inside of you, so we're looking forward to hearing the rest of the story.
Yes. The rest of the story is to come.
Well, I want to encourage those that you have been listening to Gwen Marshall to go pick up your copy of your book, Suited for Service, Stories by Unsung Heroes of Brotherhood, on Amazon or at payprovpublishing.com. Gwen Marshall, as I mentioned, she's also a speaker and teacher, educator, and trainer, and you can reach her at gwenmarshall1009@gmail.com and get her to be a keynote at your next event. I know she spoke at one of our events, which was amazing. Actually, a couple of our events you keynoted for us. So she won't disappoint. You'll enjoy her, I promise you. And Gwen, I want to just leave you with lasting words that you'd like to share with the audience before I close this out.
Wow. Think of your life story as a portrait and paint it. And remember that every stroke is just as important as the last. And you'll be pleased with the final portrait.
I love that. There's nothing else said. That's a drop the mic. Thank you again, Gwen Marshall, for joining me on another episode of Power of the Pen. To our listening audience, please reach out to Gwen Marshall just to learn more about her and the work that she's doing, or to have her keynote one of your events. Also, get a copy of Suited for Service, Stories by Unsung Heroes of Brotherhood on Amazon or on payprovpublishing.com. Until next time, we will see you on another edition of Power of the Pen. Take care.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Gwen.
Bye-bye.